Life is complicated like a tangled ball of yarn. But stories are those colorful, bright strings which need to be intricately intertwined along to narrate a tale full of splash. And that is the beauty of life.
Yes, indeed. And as we're here on National Short Story Day, we welcome you to My Good School Show Season 9, where passion meets education. Today, I, Rishona,
And I, Anvesha, will be your host for the event. We have a very special person here with us today. We have the co-author of the Great Tribal Warriors of Bharat, Miss Ambalika Bhatt, with us. We welcome you, ma'am. Would you like to speak a few words with us, ma'am?
Hi, good evening. Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome, Rishona and Anvesha. It's a delight to be here. I've been listening to your podcasts and they are so impressive. I'm really thrilled. Thank you so much for having me over.
thank you, ma'am. It is great to be here alongside you on this day. Authors are simply like storytellers, and stories are the way life works.
Yes, we hear and tell stories every day. When we need to narrate an incident to someone, we tell a story. Or the time when a quick excuse is needed, our mouth blurts out the best story in hand.
Yes, in order to learn something effectively, we often learn it as a story. Moreover, whenever we have to learn about values or life skills, they are best learned as stories.
Indeed. Ambalika ma'am, what do you think about the role of stories in human life?
Oh, stories have been very important and they've shaped the way mankind has evolved. What I personally feel is that stories have an inherent power to awaken the latent competitiveness in each one of us, and also they awaken in us this desire for self improvement. Like, I was listening to the examples of how storytelling benefits that both of you just shared. And if you look at it, that's what it does, isn't it? We want to do something and we have a story to support that. We don't want to do something and we have another story to support that. So, in both cases, we are trying to achieve something and we also know what exactly it is that we want to learn, what we want to do, how we want to do it, when we want to do it, where we want to do it. And in that sense, we get a sort of a roadmap as to how we can achieve it. And that's what stories have always been doing. So, stories have been good, but I must put a word of caution here. Storytelling can also be used in a very negative sense. For instance, if someone has committed a not so pleasant event, let's say, sort of a crime has been committed and they want to hide it, they can come up with stories as well. If somebody has stolen something, they can also come up with a very convincing story to prove that it has been otherwise. So, yes, stories can build and stories can cause destruction as well. So, it's actually the responsibility of the person telling the story to see how can they use it. Very persuasive, and stories are a very important tool.
Stories indeed have a great meaning, ma'am. They have a meaning which surely puts an impact in some way or the other. The Great Tribal Warriors of Bharat is definitely a book of one of a kind. I'm sure, ma'am, that your book influenced you and motivated you in one way or the other.
Yes, Rishona, that's very true. Researching for the book and crafting these storylines, developing them, indeed has left a very deep impact on me. And actually, I'm very grateful that it's worked out that way. Would you like me to share a little bit more on how it has influenced me?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, when I was researching, and one thing that consistently kept coming up was this fight between the indigenous leaders and the foreign power that came in, the colonizers, or the Britishers, as we very commonly put them as. And on one hand, I could see that when the Britishers were trying to put these rebels down, rebels in the sense that in their eyes, these leaders were rebels. So when the Britishers were trying to put them down, they were dependent on a lot of material things like weapons. But on the other hand, our indigenous leaders, they did have weapons, but in their communities, they used them primarily for hunting and self-protection. It wasn't meant for making war or even fighting war, or certainly not for conquest. So for them, even though they were trained in basic warfare and for defending their people, even though they had that kind of power with them, it certainly did not match that of the Britishers. But on the other hand, they had something which was much more stronger, which is their willingness to lay down their lives to uphold the values. So what I realized by the time I finished the book was that this is not just fight for freedom. It's also a case of moral values fighting against guns and weapons. So for me, that was really a very transformative finding. You could say that it changed me very deeply from within. Not that I'm an immoral person, but it really opened my eyes to how much more can I uphold my personal values, and how can I live my values in really every aspect of my life, whether it is a small thing or a big thing, to whosoever am I speaking to, irrespective of their age, where they belong to, what they do. Can I come across as a person who embodies these values, not just the value of the community that I come from, the region I come from, or the country I come from, or who I am. It is all encompassing. And that really brought about a huge change in me. Now I can say that I'm a lot more aware during my interactions with people. I constantly think of how I'm going to interact with them in keeping with my values. Like I'm especially much more cautious than I was ever before. So I think in doing so, I end up paying a long overdue tribute to all these leaders who have fought for our independence.
I absolutely agree, Ma. Each story influences us. It has a unique message that is portrayed throughout the tale. I personally love to read stories of all kinds. Sometimes they're a means to elude from our everyday life, and at other times, stories are simply advisors. Each story, each character, each message is a tie that connects us all. It is not the extravagance, but the simplicity of stories that lies embedded in the minds of the readers, leaving indelible impressions.
Stories can be used in a negative way, but those which lend out a positive message definitely inspire us, help us, and some stories just touch our hearts. It is rightly said by Rudyard Kipling, if history was taught in stories, it would never be forgotten. To conclude, I would like to quote a line by A.C. Benson. All the best stories in the world are one story in reality, the story of escape. It is the only thing that interests us all, and at all times, how to escape. That was it from us today.
With that, we come to the end of our podcast. Comment below and let us know if you liked our podcast. If you want to be a part of similar podcasts, join us. We hope to meet you soon again when we are back with a podcast next month. That's all for us today. Thank you.